Thanks, Dan, and it's good to meet a fellow person who lives in Melbourne. Michele, welcome. So, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Clinton. I'm from Melbourne in Australia. I'm a social planner in local government. That's my job. I've also worked for ICLE UN Habitat in the past. So I'm a wide-ranging urbanist. I hope I'm a talented one before I stand before you today to talk about the things that I've been doing across the fellowship. And my SDG target is 11.7, which is by 2030 to provide universal access to safe, inclusive, and accessible green and public spaces, in particular for women, children, older persons, and persons with disabilities. So Melbourne, as some of you may know, ranks very well on, in fact, #1 on some of them, a number of global livability and sustainability indices. But that does not mean that we do not need action on the SDGs and sustainable development. In fact, Melbourne can be one of the leading cities, indeed, in the world that can teach and be a resource for many cities around the world on sustainable urban development. So the story, I'll give you a brief overview on the story behind the numbers on public spaces in Melbourne. And if you think back to the dimensions of public spaces in that target, of course we have growth in Melbourne until 2050. We're going to grow by about 3.2 million people in the metropolitan area, which is staggering when you think about it. Now, in the City of Melbourne municipal area, we have women reporting a 7% drop on feeling safe in public spaces in our cities in 1 year. And then in general, how safe do you feel? The general population, we've also had a drop. And due to the growth of our population in the City of Melbourne municipal area, the amount of open space and green space is also projected to fall. So that's the amount of open space that is available to residents per capita. So that's projected to fall also by 2026. So the solutions, what have I been doing since April last year? So advocacy. So I not only in Melbourne, but also overseas at the Asia Pacific City Summit in Korea. But the New Urban Agenda Conference, we did a pre-conference youth workshop. Also at the City of Melbourne, I was lucky enough to be on the SDGs working group to understand how the goals relate to the plans, policies, and strategies of the city. And I also spoke to over 100 young women, 100 girl students at high schools on their thoughts and their opinions on public spaces. So with that nice big pot of ideas and thoughts in my head, what do I think is some good solutions for this target in Melbourne? So my idea is actually to develop a public space audit and education program for young people built on the 4 pillars of target 11.7, because young people actually, I think, they don't get a good urban education in high school. They don't get a good understanding, basic understanding of the principles of cities. And you know, we all walk through public spaces to come here today. We all thought, oh, where am I going to cross the road? Do I feel safe? Oh, and also it's very hot, as I experienced walking 20 minutes here. So public spaces are really the bedrock of the cities. They allow people to access their jobs, their services, and so forth, and of course mobility. And there will be an ethnographic video to accompany this project as well. Apart from my project, the legacy of Local Pathways for me is I've set up a website. If you go there, it's not quite, I'm not a web designer, okay, I'm an urbanist, so I'm realize2030.com to, as Michele said, to understand the linkages between local people and global movements and tell their stories. And locally in Australia, in Melbourne as well, we've got some work to do, rolling up our sleeves in terms of a submission to the Australian government, who has an open inquiry on the SDGs. And also, I would like to work really much more closely with young people to understand the linkages between everyday behaviors and the SDGs. And of course, and the most important thing, I've found an amazing network of people, of supporters and friends from around the world. Thank you.